The Underworld Unleashed, a symphony of screams, as heroes and villains collide in epic righteous dreams. The clash of good and evil, the battle for the soul. In this infernal battlefield, who will control? Soulfire Inferno, raging through the night. The forces of darkness face the hero's might. Legends standing tall against the demon's call. In the end, they'll prevail, and Neron will fall. In the end, they'll prevail, and Neron will fall.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Crisis. In this episode we are talking about Underworld Unleashed, the event that came out in 1995. It's a DC event written by Mark Waid. It's all about the DC supervillains all selling their souls to become stronger, and selling their souls to this evil villain named Neron, and Neron has a more sinister plan going on, and I'll have to talk about the event in order to explain all of that. But that's the gist of the story, is that the supervillains team up with the devil, not Lucifer though. Mark Waid just created a new devil. Get power-ups and fight the heroes. So, without further ado, let's just get straight into issue 1. There was a little bit of setup in the Flash where it was Pied Piper received a mysterious-looking candle, and that was kind of the precursor to this, because the candles are sent to lots of different villains by Neron in order as like an invitation. So the first issue 1 of Underworld Unleashed. I'm actually going to go ahead a little bit just so I can... because it's written by Mark Waid with art by Howard Porter and Dan Green. So issue 1 begins with some of the rogues. Captain Boomerang, Captain Cold, Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, and the one that actually kind of pisses me off him being here, Heatwave. Now, the reason why this upsets me already is because in the Flash, in pre-Crisis, before the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Heatwave, Mick Rory, he was a very troubled person psychologically, and he ends up going and getting therapy, and he gave up his career as a criminal altogether, and he became friends with Barry Allen. And the last time we see him before Barry dies is he teams up with Barry and helps him fight Captain Cold. And that's it. After that, he's just out of the criminal game forever. Except not according to Mark Waid, because at the beginning of Underworld Unleashed, he's just Heatwave again without any explanation. And I'm just kind of like, man, Mark, you're supposed to be a big Flash fan. You grew up with the Barry Allen comics. I'd assumed you read them all. Why didn't you go back and look up where Heatwave was last left off, so that you could at least build him up becoming a criminal again, instead of just being like, oh, he's a criminal again, screw all of that character development, who cares? I care. So it was very frustrating reading this, and instantly we're already disregarding character development. So the rogues have all been told by Kadabra to go and cause chaos at different points in the planet. And he's given them, new technology to make them better at their job. And so they go around to, a nuclear plant and a volcano and an oil field and a chemical dump just to cause chaos. They cause massive, fiery explosions, 5 of them across the planet. And then after doing so, the rogues start to become, the skin starts to get, boiled and peeled off of their bones, and they all start screaming in agony, and green fire starts to consume them, and they're like, ah! And Kadabra is like, those idiots gave their lives for something that they didn't even know about. Neron is coming. And so, the Justice League, specifically Flash, Martian Manhunter, and Blue Devil and Wonder Woman are there. They're the most important members that are there. Fire is there too, which is interesting. So far, the biggest players in this book are definitely Blue Devil and the Flash. They hear about the giant fire explosions that are going off all over Earth. And Blue Devil, a character who can't be bothered explaining, he's just a guy that turns into, or he got turned into the form of, he's not even actually a devil. He just looks like a devil. He's got blue skin and like he got cursed or something and became Blue Devil. He's usually depicted as a bit of like one of those like comical characters who's quite funny and weird. He sees the 5 points of explosions that are happening on the planet and notices that they are making a familiar symbol. And he tells Wonder Woman this, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Blue Devil. I'm just going to go check out the situation. And so he starts tracing over the 5 explosion points, and he realizes that they are in the shape of a pentagram. Because it's the devil. Neron. This mysterious Neron is related to pentagram somehow. So we cut to the Trickster, who is going to serve as our main point of view throughout this event. I was going to say main protagonist. He kind of is the main protagonist. As you know, he's a rogue of Barry Allen, who is considered to be his lamest rogue because he's all about just doing tricks with rubber chickens and stuff like that, putting explosions in them, things like that. And he's been reduced to like stealing tips or like cheating pizza boys out of their tips and stuff. So yeah, he's become a pretty big lowlife at the moment, and he wants to get back on top, and he wants to start doing big heists and things again. And he sees the newspaper of all of his rogue friends who have recently died, and he's like, well, you know what, I'm gonna do what they couldn't do. They died as lame asses. I'm not gonna die like that. I'm going to make a name for myself. Like, it's time I made a name for myself. So he goes off to do that, and across the world, people are making deals and doing things that you wouldn't normally do, making risks and stuff. It's kind of mysterious where, like, you know, there's like a kid who went and like stole something and he's never done that before, and now he's gone. And it's all kind of mysterious. So at Belle Reve, which holds like 140 supervillains, this man named Lou, who is a criminal at Belle Reve, gets brought in to see the warden. And he doesn't realize that there's a dead body behind this warden, because it's not actually the warden. It's Neron in disguise as the warden. And basically, this Lou guy says that this dude named Finney, who is one of the guards, has stolen his calendar that he treasures immensely, because there's a woman on the calendar and he's like in love with it. And Neron is like, well, if you agree to my deal, I will give you this gun so that you can go and kill Finney. But you have to do it at midnight. That's the deal. And Lou agrees to the deal, and then he leaves with the gun. And it turns out that Neron was the one that stole the calendar. So Lou goes and he just grabs his gun out. And he's like, hey, Finney, this is for stealing my calendar. And he shoots Finney, and Finney falls backwards into the generator that's behind him, because they're in like the underground of Belle Reve where the power generators are. And the bullets hit the generator, and the generator goes ballistic and explodes, killing everyone in the room, including Lou. And because the generators have exploded, the cells all fail, like the prisoner cells, and so all of the supervillains in Belle Reve escape, all over 140 of them. And it says that it holds the most dangerous villains in, like, DC, but then, because you'll see stuff like Dr. Alchemy and Shrapnel, actual villains who are, have superpowers and are very dangerous, but then you see, like, there's just, like, Deadshot is there. And it's like, okay, alright, so Deadshot is there. Or, like, Polka Dot Man is in there, and it's like, are these really the most dangerous villains? Why is Deadshot in Belle Reve? Shouldn't he be in Iron Heights or Arkham Asylum? So the villains all escape from Belle Reve, and they all leave through the front gate, and then Neron arrives and takes Lou's soul. And he's like, you owed me, I kept my end of the bargain, you keep yours. And he steals his soul. Meanwhile, the Trickster is with Rainbow Raider, another Flash villain who I have talked about on the podcast before because he appeared in a crossover between Green Lantern and Flash, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe that was earlier. I feel like I talked about it. But yeah, Rainbow Raider is this guy that has the ability to change people's emotions using colorful beams that he can shoot from his eyes. He's basically Cyclops if he was like if he had like the pride flag as his costume. That's what he looks like. So Trickster has basically asked Rainbow Raider to help him do some criminal stuff, and Rainbow Raider is like, man, we're both lame. Like, what are we doing? I was actually thinking of, maybe going and like using this mysterious candle that was sent to me, and Rainbow Raider pulls out this candle because he's been sent one of the candles that Pied Piper was sent, and Trickster takes a quick look at the candle and then gives it back to Rainbow Raider and is like, I don't want anything to do with this. If you don't want to help me, be a criminal, then whatever. Have fun with your candle, Raider. And he heads off, and then Rainbow Raider opens up the box with the candle in it, and there's a rubber chicken in it because the Trickster tricked him and stole the candle. So we're left with Rainbow Raider just being like, Trickster! So Trickster heads to a clock tower that he chills in apparently sometimes. And he has his candle, and he sets it on fire, and then a blinding light flashes in front of his eyes, and suddenly he's teleported to a room full of lots of villains, including Cheetah and Blockbuster, and the Riddler is there, and Scarecrow, pretty much everyone. And they're all confused of what's going on, and they're all trying to create alliances, because that's the first thing that villains think of when they see each other is, who can I team up with to get the best advantage? So Trickster is looking at different villains and is like, man, Killer Frost, nah, she usually kills her partners. Blockbuster, he's too stupid. Gorilla Grodd, oh, he hates the rogues. He treats us like crap. And so the villains start like fighting each other, because that's also what villains do. And then Neron shows up and is like, calm down, I'm here to tell you everything that's going on. Basically, I'm here to give you all a deal. A deal that will guarantee that you will become stronger than you've ever been before. And the villains, and he's like, if you don't believe me, what you might listen to my representative, Kadabra, because he's one of you. So Kadabra appears, and he's like, whatever, everything that Neron is saying is true. He's given me everything I desire, and he's also given these guys, like, his proof of what Neron is saying. And so these other villains show up to talk on Neron's behalf. So Lex Luthor is there, and he's like, when my clone body died and I became a really, like, when my clone body fell apart and I became a horrible husk, Neron gave me power and rejuvenated my body and made me young and handsome and strong again. And then Cersei's there, and she's like, yeah, he helped me too. He helped me forget about War of the Gods, the horrible event that I was in. And Dr. Polaris, who is the Magneto of the DC Universe, is like, hey, yeah, he made me stronger. He gave me a cool costume. And then the Joker's there, and as far as I know, he didn't actually do anything to help the Joker. I think the deal that he gave the Joker was that the Joker was just gonna be there, and like he promised that the Joker was gonna be able to cause some chaos, and the Joker was just like, yeah, I'll join in. That's all I want. I think he also promised the Joker that he'd have a chance to kill Batman. I think that's all the Joker really wanted. So Neron says that all the villains have to do is they have to agree to his deal, and they will get all the power that they need to become way stronger. And half of the villains, they say no. The Riddler and a bunch of other villains are just like, nope, we're cool, we don't need redesigns, we're already good characters, and so they get sent away by Neron. He's like, well, if you don't want to be a part of my deal, then you can just go away. See ya. One villain in particular has a problem with Neron telling him what to do, and that's Mongol. He's like, hey, nobody tells Mongol what to do. If anyone's gonna be the lord of this realm, it's gonna be me. And Neron is just like, yeah, you fought Superman and Green Lantern, but you're nothing compared to me. Don't ever talk to me like that again. And Mongol just like smacks the crap out of, not Mongol, Neron smacks the crap out of Mongol, and then just steals his soul, and you see his, like, Mongol's soul go inside Neron, and you see Mongol, like, it's a really cool shot of Mongol's soul in Neron's eyes, screaming. It's really cool. So Mongol's dead. And so, yeah, half the villains don't agree to the deal, and then the other half of the villains do agree. So Blockbuster, who was really stupid but super strong, his deal with Neron is that he becomes super smart and super strong. And this is the origin of the current Blockbuster that we know today, who is the arch nemesis of Nightwing. And after this event, he would actually, or not after this event, during this event, in a tie-in, he would go and fight Bart Allen, aka Impulse, in the Impulse series. He starts a whole mafia and everything. Some of the other villains that take deals, Major Disaster, Killer Moth takes the deal, and he gets transformed into a hideous moth creature, which straight up ruins his character as being, he's supposed to be the lame one. That's kind of the whole point of him. So when you make him cool, it kind of ruins his character. So yeah, all of these characters, all these villains agree to the deal, and their soul energy gets sucked out of them and into Neron, and the Trickster's just kind of like, I'm seeing all this soul energy be filled, and the only question I can ask is, what are you planning, Neron? Like, what are you planning to do with that soul energy? Which is what he's saying to himself. And then Neron is like, now that you've all got more superpowers and better costumes and appearances, go off and cause as much chaos, kill any heroes that you want to, like, you're free to go. And he lets all the supervillains go. And then Neron notices that Trickster is in the room, because Trickster's been hiding this whole time, watching everything go down. Because he stole the candle, and so he believed that he was an uninvited guest to the soul party. And Neron is like, oh, I knew you were going to steal that candle. What, did you think I would invite somebody like Rainbow Raider? Be real. I want to actually reunite with you with somebody that you may know. And Neron summons Blue Devil, because apparently Blue Devil and the Trickster have a history. I can't really explain that because I don't read Blue Devil. But yeah, apparently they know each other. So Blue Devil arrives, and Neron decides that he's going to cut a deal with Blue Devil. And the Trickster is like, ooh, I wonder what his deal is going to be. I guess I'll have to tag along and find out. And we'll find out eventually. Because that's where Underworld issue 1, like Underworld Unleashed issue 1 ends. It ends with Neron and Blue Devil making a deal. And, yeah. Next, we're going to be talking about Underworld Unleashed, Apokolips, Dark Rising, with a Dark Uprising. Yeah, Apokolips, Dark Uprising. It is a tie-in to Underworld Unleashed that is included in this trade paperback that I have. So, yeah, I'll be covering this. Alright, Underworld Unleashed, Apokolips, Dark Uprising. Basically it's just what happens on Apokolips during Underworld Unleashed, because obviously we got the new gods. Like, what's gonna stop them from coming and stopping Neron? Well, this explains how Neron deals with Apokolips. So, already his job is pretty easy because Darkseid's dead at the moment. Basically what happened is Darkseid found this thing called the Source Wall, which is the source of the entire universe. That's as much as I can explain it. It is literally everything. Like the source of creation. And he went into it and he died. And the same thing happened to his dad. His dad went into the Source Wall and he died. And then Darkseid turned against his mother with the help of Steppenwolf, and that's how he took over Apokolips. And then he went into the Source Wall and he died. So now that Darkseid is dead, everyone on Apokolips is trying to take over. The slaves of Apokolips, led by this man named Targa, want to rebel against Apokolips now that Darkseid is dead. Granny Goodness, who is the owner of the Apokolips orphanage, where she just tortures the orphans and stuff, is gonna team up with Vile Wunderbar, who is like a general of Apokolips, so they're gonna team up together and try to take over. Dr. Bedlam is going to try and take over. Dr. Bedlam was in Legends. He is essentially immortal. He has the ability to move his mind into android bodies, so he wants to take over Apokolips. And then Desaad wants to keep the throne of Darkseid available because he believes that Darkseid will come back. But secretly he's kind of saying that, but at the same time he's like, well, if Darkseid doesn't come back, I might as well, control Apokolips. But not myself. What I'll do is I'll get Darkseid's son, Calibac, to take over Apokolips. But I'll be kind of like shepherding him, so really I'll be the one in control. So everyone's planning to take over, tons of betrayal. This is literally the whole story, is they keep betraying each other because of Neron's influence. So Neron shows up to Bedlam and is like, hey, you're destined to win the war. And that gives Bedlam the courage to start the war. And then he goes to Wunderbar and Granny Goodness and Desaad and Calibac, because they all meet up together, and he basically says to them that they are going to, that Bedlam is going to take over No, that's what it is. So he turns them against each other. He says that Desaad is going to trifle in this war of Apokolips and will fall, and that Wunderbar is going to be the one responsible for his fall. So that turns Desaad and Wunderbar and Granny Goodness against each other. Granny Goodness turns against Wunderbar and tries to assassinate him with her assassin, whose name is Kanto, or Kato, and I think that's his name, Kato. And so Kato shows up and he tries to kill Wunderbar. Wunderbar teams up with Steppenwolf, and when Kato shows up to kill Wunderbar, Steppenwolf is like, Granny Goodness is trying to kill you, so it's probably safer for me not to team up with you, and so he leaves. And then Wunderbar manages to convince Kato to work for him and not Granny Goodness. So Kato goes back to Granny Goodness and tries to kill her, but then Granny Goodness is saved by one of her own assassins, another assassin that she has, one of the leaders of the Female Furies, who are this group of women warriors on Apokolips. who I think Big Bartha is a Big Barda. She's a member of the female Furies, if I remember correctly. Um, it's just a lot of that. It's just a lot of like, oh, they're all turning against each other. And then meanwhile, Targa, who is just a regular dude, a regular slave, decides that he's going to rebel. And so when a parademon comes to, because basically one of Darkseid's men tries to take the bread that is owed to them. Targa refuses him, and then a parademon comes to deal with Targa, and Targa is like, no, I'm not listening to you anymore, we're going to rebel now. And so they start rebelling against the Apokolips' forces, and then Granny Goodness's forces show up, and Wunderbar's forces show up, and they all start fighting. And as they're fighting, Targa sees like a little child like get like almost die in the battle, and so that pushes him even further to rally his forces and continue fighting. And so there's just a massive fight that goes on across all the forces of Apokolips, except for Desaad and Kalibak, who are hiding away in the throne room, waiting for everyone else to take each other out, so that it's just them left. And so as the fight is going on, Neron comes to Targa and tries to strike him a deal, and Targa is like, no, because you sound like a trick. Like, you sound like a trickster. And so Neron's just like, damn it, he didn't take my deal. Well, I guess I can't do anything. I guess I'll just watch them take each other out. And then as the fight continues, Darkseid appears. Darkseid just comes out of nowhere. He just comes out of his fortress and is just like, all of you have betrayed me, and like all of his forces, like Granny Goodness and Wunderbar and that, are all lying to him, saying like, oh, we weren't trying to betray you. And he's like, lies, I know you're lying to me. And then he's like, what about you, peasant? And Targa is like, I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to, knowing that you were dead, I was going to try and take over and destroy all of your forces. And Darkseid is like, I appreciate you being truthful, but somebody has to pay. And so he kills all of Targa's friends and family, leaves Targa alive. And Targa is like, oh my god, like, did you have to do that? Like, they didn't deserve that. And Darkseid is like, that's the price that you pay, is that somebody has to pay. And then he goes back inside his fortress, and then it turns out that it wasn't actually Darkseid, it was Desaad pretending to be Darkseid. And so Desaad has won and has taken over Apokolips, but then Neron comes to him and is like, actually you lost because I own your soul now, and there is nothing left for you. And when if Darkseid does come back, it's over for you. And so Desaad is just left like, ah, crap, I've lost my soul and it's hopeless. And that's it. That's the end of this this like one shot. It's just, I'm sure there are people that probably enjoy this, but I didn't. Like, it's just nothing but they all fight and they all turn against each other and they all betray each other, and then Neron's just like in the background, and Desaad is like and that's it. Like, that's the whole story. And then they all beat each other up, and then Desaad kills everyone, but he still loses because he's killed everyone. So and he's lost his soul. So Neron has taken all of his power anyway, so like he can't even do anything. And that's it. It's like, but yeah, enough of that one shot, because next we're going to be talking about Underworld Unleashed Issue 2. Issue 1 was definitely a bit slow because it was setting everything up, but hopefully issue 2 is where we really get into the meat of the event and we get to actually see some action, and maybe it'll get a little bit more interesting. Oh, wait, actually, no, we're not going to be doing Underworld Unleashed issue 2. I just took a look at my reading list and we've got to do the Flash tie in. So I'll talk about that. And I'll talk about the Green Lantern tie ins as well. I won't recount them page for page like I do with the Flash, but I'll talk about it, especially because I think Green Lantern ties in heavily into this. So, yeah, we're going to be doing Flash issue 107. And then after that, we will be doing Green Lantern issue 68, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. And then after that, I think we're going to be doing Underworld issue 2. Alright, Flash issue 107, tie into Underworld Unleashed, written by Mark Waid with art by Oscar Jimenez and Jose Marzan Jr. So, in this issue, there's a villain known as Kyle Sands, aka the Shadow Thief. He's normally depicted as the arch nemesis of Hawkman and Hawkwoman. Originally, he had a suit that could just turn him into a wraith, like a shadow wraith. But Neron comes to him and offers him more power in exchange for his soul. But obviously, Carl doesn't know this. Carl agrees to it, and he gets a new suit given to him by Neron that allows him to not only turn into shadows, but also turn other people into shadows and other things into shadows by touching them and just being around them. So, Wally West is currently in Solar City, which is a brand new city being built that's going to be completely solar powered. It's full of like high-tech technology. He was convinced by Linda to come with her. He thinks that she tricked him into coming, but she didn't. She said exactly what they were going there to do, and he agreed. It's hinted that he just wasn't really listening, which, you know, that's Wally. But what he thought was that they would have stuff to do, but half of the buildings aren't finished being built, so there's nothing to do. And Linda's like, well, we can make up something to do. Like, we can figure out something to do after I've met with my fellow reporter that I'm meeting here. And it turns out this reporter is the young Billy Batson, who you would also know as Captain Marvel, later renamed Shazam, later renamed The Captain is the name that he currently goes by. So Billy Batson arrives at the building to meet Linda, and he notices that people around him are screaming and turning into shadows. And so he quickly ducks behind a bush and chucks his luggage in there, and then calls Shazam in order to turn into Captain Marvel. Wally and Linda notice that people are turning into shadows as well, and Wally thinks that Billy is going to get struck by lightning, so he actually pulls Billy away from the lightning that was going to transform him into Captain Marvel. He's like, whoa, gotcha, kid. And it's as Wally's carrying him that the lightning that Billy created chases after them, and then hits Billy still, and he turns into Captain Marvel, and Wally's just like, wait, what happened to the kid? Captain Marvel's like, I took him to safety, like, he's all good. Alright, let's go figure out what's happening with these people. I think it's really cool that it's... I don't know if this is a retcon, but, like, if Billy summons the lightning to transform, it follows him. He's like a divining rod for this lightning where, like, even if he runs away from it, it'll come after him and transform him. So they try to help these people being consumed by shadows, and they realize that their hands are going straight through them, and they're like, oh my god, what's going on? And they realize that it's the Shadow Thief, and the Shadow Thief appears, and he starts turning a bus into shadows. And so Captain Marvel and the Flash try to attack him, and they can't touch him, but the Flash runs through him, and his lightning hurts Shadow Thief. But Shadow Thief then consumes Captain Marvel and Flash in shadows, and using his super speed, Flash is able to make it out of the shadows, but they realize that Shadow Thief has run away. However, the people around them are all safe and sound for now. So Captain Marvel decides to head off to find Shadow Thief alongside Wally. And Wally, as they're searching throughout the city, Wally comes to the conclusion that they need to go and meet this Professor Bennett, who is the man that built Solar City, because he might know why Shadow Thief is attacking the city. Also, while they're running, Flash asks Captain Marvel if he has the power of the Speed Force, and Captain Marvel is like, "No, I'm actually just powered by the god Mercury." And Wally's like, "Oh wow, Mercury, I've met him." So Wally goes to meet Bennett. Bennett has the lights off, and Wally turns them on. And then Bennett goes and turns them off again, and Wally's just like, "What are you doing? Why are you turning off the lights?" And Bennett's like, because he's like, "Shadow Thief is probably gonna come after you," and Bennett's just like, "Good, I want him to." Meanwhile, Billy goes searching for Shadow Thief, and he finds a train, and he heads onto the train, and he notices that some nearby buildings are being consumed by shadows and are collapsing. So he goes to try and help with that. And Bennett explains why Shadow Thief is coming after him and the city. So basically, Bennett was creating this city, and at the same time he realized that another professor was also going to create a city as well that was like this. So he didn't want his breakthrough to be ruined by another professor. So he hired Shadow Thief to sabotage the other professor's work, but in doing so, Shadow Thief was arrested and Bennett got away scot-free, and now he's guilty. Like, now he feels guilt because he didn't get this far on his own. He cheated. So he's waiting for Shadow Thief to come because he wants Shadow Thief to tear down everything that he created because he feels like he doesn't deserve it. Meanwhile, Billy Batson tries to, he turns into Captain Marvel, and he tries to stop the building from falling apart, but he realizes that the train is now being consumed by shadows, and the train has people on it, so that's his main priority right now. So he goes to grab the train, he pulls it off of the tracks, and he flies through the air with it at enough speed that it keeps it in the air, and then he slowly lands it in the water, saving everyone. But the train is still being consumed by shadows, so he needs to find Shadow Thief and stop him before these people all get consumed by the shadows. Meanwhile, Shadow Thief infiltrates the building that Wally and Burnett is in and collapses the nearby wall on top of Wally and then confronts Burnett. And Burnett tells Shadow Thief that he's doing exactly what he wants him to do and that he's free to destroy the city because that's what Burnett wants. And Shadow Thief is like, "Damn it. Like, screw you. Like, I thought I was ruining your life and I'm still doing what you want? Like, come on, man. How did I can't win. Well, whatever. I'll continue destroying the city anyway. And I'll destroy the Flash and Captain Marvel as well." And so, Burnett is consumed by the shadows and dies. And then the entire city is consumed by the shadows. And Captain Marvel and Wally are stuck in it. And Captain Marvel is like, "If I give you a little bit of light, you might be able to see Shadow Thief and we might be able to take care of him." So Captain Marvel says Shazam and creates a lightning flash. And with that flash, they see Shadow Thief. And the flash of lightning causes Shadow Thief to actually, stagger. And it turns out that he's been hit by Wally's lightning, because Wally runs through him and the lightning starts causing him to freak out. He's like, "No, this shouldn't happen. I made a deal with Neron. He promised me power. We had a deal. It's not fair. It's not fair." And Shadow Thief gets consumed by his own shadows and just disappears. And Wally's just like, "Whoa, heavy. I think he's dead." And so Wally and Linda reunite, and Captain Marvel mysteriously disappears just as Billy shows up. And, Wally's like, "Oh, hey, Billy, we've met before." And Billy's like, "We have?" He's like, "Yeah, freaky thing. I saved you from a lightning bolt, remember?" And he's like, right. Because Billy thinks that he recognizes him and that it's, Captain Marvel. And he's like, no, he just recognizes Billy because he saved him from a lightning bolt. And he's like, "Hey, you here with your folks?" And he's like, "Nah, just a reporter." And, Billy knows that Wally has been a superhero since he was a kid, and then he asks Wally who Neron is, and Wally's like, I don't know who Neron is, but I feel like I'm going to meet him eventually and come to blows with him. And we're left on that cliffhanger of read Underworld Unleashed issue 2 to see Wally face Neron alongside the other heroes. And that's the end of the tie-in. And I will say, I liked this tie-in a lot. It was way better than the Apokolips one. The Apokolips one-shot. This was a lot of fun. Seeing Wally and Captain Marvel team up to fight the Shadow Thief. Like, that's fun. So, Underworld Unleashed issue 2. So, Neron made a deal with Daniel Cassidy, aka the Blue Devil, that he would reunite with his wife Maria Bloom, and their lives would be so much better because right now he's a struggling B-movie actor, and Neron has promised that if he does his bidding, he will become a famous movie star, and then he and Maria will be living the good life. So all he needs to do is go and destroy a power plant. So Blue Devil goes to the power plant and he destroys it, and then he goes to call Neron through the candle, but decides that he wants to go home and think about Maria first before doing it. Meanwhile, Neron is with the council and he leaves them to just do whatever they want and just chill and eat and party. And he tells the trickster to watch them for him. And we learn what they bargained for. So Abracadabra bargained for real magic instead of just technology. Lex bargained for youth. Dr. Polaris bargained for just one personality because he originally had two and now he just has one. And Cersei bargained for more power to beat Wonder Woman. And then they're like, oh, what did you bargain for, Joker? And Joker bargained for Cuban cigars. He bargained his soul for Cuban cigars. So because the trickster has been left by Neron, and the other villains, like, they notice that the trickster has been trusted by Neron, and they know that the trickster knows the secret to Neron's power, and so they start torturing him. Like, Joker starts squirting acid in his face from his flower, and the trickster admits that that Neron gets his power from something called the Soul Jar, and that he's willing to show the Inner Council this Soul Jar so that they can use it for their own deeds. Meanwhile, the Flash is running through Central City trying to stop a fire, and Neron meets with him and says, hey Wally, if you give me your soul, I'll give you Barry back. And Wally's just like, no deal. Because you can't, you can't trick me into wishing for Barry to come back, because I went through a whole character arc getting over Barry. So yeah, that's not going to work on me. And so Neron's just like, damn it, and he leaves. The Inner Council find the Soul Jar, and Lex and Joker tell Cersei, Dr. Polaris, and Abracadabra to use their powers to try and bust open the Soul Jar so that they can split the power of the Soul Jar among the five of them. Meanwhile, Batman returns to the Batcave, and Neron appears in front of him and basically says, hey Batman, that Robin that died, Jason, I can bring him back for you. And Batman Bruce sees Jason. He's like, Jason? And then he says no. He turns Neron down, and then Neron's just like, pity, and he leaves, and Bruce sees Jason walking away, and he chases after him. He's like, Jason, wait! And then he falls on his knees, and he's just like, ugh. It's pretty sad. It's a pretty sad moment of seeing Batman just be like, I missed my chance. Being conflicted on his decision. Neron goes to Superboy and promises Superboy that he could give him the title of Superman, because that's what Superboy really wants. Superboy is like, I don't want to do it that way. I want to earn the title. And Neron's just like, oh well, I'll go after somebody else with the symbol. Somebody who's kind and compassionate. You know who I'm talking about. And he leaves Superboy with that bit of foreshadowing. And then we get a display of Neron going around to different heroes like Captain Atom and Max Mercury and Lobo, who all say no to him. But then we also find out that there are some heroes and vigilantes who said yes to him. So Hawkman, the Ray, and the Spectre and Triumph, who is a character, all said yes. They all sold their souls. Meanwhile, Maria Bloom, Daniel Cassidy's girlfriend that I mentioned earlier, is reporting on what's going on, and she's in a helicopter with her camera, and as they're flying, they hit a power line, and the helicopter explodes, and they both die. Yeah, Maria Bloom dies, and Daniel Cassidy sees the news at home of Maria's death, and he's like, "Damn you, Neron. You knew that was going to happen, you bastard." And then we have this really sad scene of Blue Devil just sitting in his armchair as people are calling him, saying like, you know, we heard of the terrible news. Hey, we got some opportunities for you, some film opportunities and stuff. And he's just sitting there kind of just like skipping through each message and listening to them. It's really sad. I really like it. It's probably my favorite moment in the entire comic. I don't usually care about characters like Blue Devil, just because I haven't read his comics, but I will say, like, this was the best part of this issue. So Neron goes to Kyle Rayner, who is the current Green Lantern, and offers Kyle, because Kyle's girlfriend Alex was killed by Major Force, a villain, who cut her into pieces and stuffed her in a fridge. It's this whole thing. It's probably the most infamous death of all time. It sparked a revolution against it sparked a lot of people standing up against the treatment of female characters in comics, you know, being killed off just to further the development of male characters. So he offers Kyle to bring her back to life, and Kyle refuses. He creates like a hologram of like a fridge, and Kyle opens it up. Like, he goes to open it up because he has to open it in order to take the deal, and he decides not to, and he attacks Neron instead. And they have a big fight throughout the city, and Neron beats the crap out of Kyle and says, "I'm not going to kill you. I just want to leave you with a message that I want to get the greatest superhero of all time to agree to my deal. You know who that is. He's kind, he's compassionate, he's the greatest, he has the greatest soul, and that's why I want it." So he leaves Kyle to pass on that message to the other heroes. Meanwhile, the rest of the Inner Council, that are following Neron, Abracadabra, Cersei, and Dr. Polaris open up the soul jar while Lex and Joker watch them from a distance, and they succeed in busting it open, and the three of them get sucked into the soul jar, and it turns out that's what Lex Luthor and Joker were planning all along. They knew that was going to happen, so now they get the power of the soul jar to themselves, while the other three villains have all been sucked away to hell or their demise. It's really cool seeing Lex Luthor and Joker team up. You don't see it super often, especially, you know, after like the Silver Age and Bronze Age. So it's really cool to see them team up. They even high five in this, and they're all like, "Ha ha ha! Like, we're awesome." You know, just the two of us. And it turns out that the Trickster is watching them do this because he knew that they were going to be doing this, or at least he pretends that he knew. Neron comes and is like, "Hey, like, good job on tricking them to go in there and you know, lose most of them in like allowing me to absorb most of them, and you know, Lex and Joker are doomed and they don't even know it." And then Neron is like, "I'm gonna leave you here to watch Lex and the Joker while I head off and continue my reign of terror." And the Trickster is left thinking about his situation. Meanwhile, Kyle gathers together a bunch of the heroes. One of them, the Ray, who agreed to the deal, is like, "I'm gonna make sure nobody finds out that I agreed to that deal." He's just sitting there like, "Well, I gotta make sure they don't find out that I sold my soul." So Kyle reveals that, like, it's the person that Neron is trying to get is Superman, and that they all notice that Superman isn't on Earth and that he's disappeared, and that it's possible that he has been kidnapped by Neron already. So they're going to take the fight to Neron. Blue Devil shows up and is like, "You want to find Neron? I'll be able to take you straight to him." And so they head off to fight Neron. Meanwhile, Neron is watching them, and he's like, "They chose to enter my domain, which is exactly what I want. Now that they're entering my domain, this world will fall to my power." And meanwhile, the Trickster is watching Neron, and we actually get to see Neron's true form. He goes from like his human form to like a weird octopus monstrous form. Like we don't see it, but we see that one of his arms turns into a tentacle, and like there's weird like monstrous looking shadow. And the trickster is watching this and is like, I might be the only one capable of defeating the devil. And so we're left on a cliffhanger of Trickster being like, I'm going to be the one that beats the devil. I'm going to fight the devil. So interested to see how that goes. So normally we would be reading Underworld Unleashed issue 3 after this, but we're actually going to be reading Underworld Unleashed Abyss Hell's Sentinel, which is a one-shot included in the paper trade back that I have, so I'm going to be reading it. Yeah, it's written by Scott Peterson with art by Phil Jimenez and J.H. Williams III. So yeah, let's get straight into it. It seems like it's going to be starring Spectre and Alan Scott and some other characters. Okay, so I read through Underworld Unleashed, Abyss. Abyss, Hell's Sentinel. This is still better than the Apokolips one, but it's not as good as the Flash tie-in that we did. Like the problem with some of these one-shots is that they're so insane. Like, the Apokolips one was just kind of boring. This one is insane, because it's all hell stuff, and, you know, you've got Phantom Stranger, you've got Spectre showing up in this, you've got a lot of different characters. One character in particular is a version of Dr. Fate that I've never heard of before, but he's in this, and he is literally just what Dr. Fate would be like in the 90s, because it's 1995. The main protagonist of this one-shot is Alan Scott. He used to be called Green Lantern, but now he goes by the name Sentinel. And after Zero Hour, he became really young again, so he's like in his late 20s now, while his wife, Molly, is still super old. She's still like 65 years old or something. She used to be a villain called the Harlequin. So Alan Scott is having these awful nightmares of him being in hell with trees growing out of him and out of his eyes and stuff. It's really gross. And he wakes up and he realizes it's a nightmare, and then he sees Molly being strangled by a bunch of like tentacles. And he's like, Molly, no! She's being pulled out of his bed and she's like, help! And so Sentinel uses his like green fire abilities, because he still has like Green Lantern energy. It's just he's not Green Lantern anymore. He uses that to save her from the grasp of the tentacles, and then transforms into Sentinel and decides to head out as Sentinel to try and track down this weird demon thing that tried to attack Molly. And Molly believes that their relationship is falling apart because of how old she is, and she's sick of being an old woman. And she finds a candle, like a box, and she opens it up, and Neron's candle is in it. And she uses the candle to make a deal with Neron, and it makes her really young again, and she becomes Harlequin again. But that doesn't last at all. Well, then I'll explain it when we get to that. So Alan Scott, because he lives in Gotham City, finds a bunch of criminals, and they think that it's Batman at first, but then they realize that it's the Sentinel, and it turns out they summoned this weird demon thing that's just a bunch of people's... It's just a disgusting thing made up of limbs and faces and stuff, and it tries to attack Alan, and he uses his powers against it. And it gets away, and then he sees a vision of Molly on the ground, and he goes to it, and then it disappears, and so he goes home because he realizes that he's left her alone, and that's when he discovers that she made the deal and that she's young again, and she's like, I did it for you, Alan. I did it all for you. So Alan realizes that Molly's lost her soul, So he wants to get her soul back. So he heads to the Justice Society's headquarters because he wants to meet with the Spectre, but Phantom Stranger is like, the Spectre isn't available at the moment, so I'll help you instead. What we'll do is we'll go around and we'll get a bunch of different characters that have magic abilities, and we'll all go to, not hell, because Neron isn't Satan, because Lucifer is Satan in the DC universe, so they can't go to hell, but they have to go to something that is exactly like hell, that Neron resides in. It's confusing. It's like Neron isn't actually the devil. He is like a devil, and he has his own hell, but it's not hell. So they're going to this other place. They never name it, but the only thing they ever say is, it's not hell. Yeah, Phantom Stranger is like, Neron's making all these deals with lots of people, and there's demons and stuff attacking people throughout the world. So I'll help you save Molly, and in turn we'll save the world too. So Alan Scott and Phantom Stranger start recruiting characters. They go and find Zatanna, and they recruit her, and then they go and find Jim Corrigan at a local restaurant where he's just causing a bit of havoc. As I said earlier, Spectre made a deal with Neron to separate himself from Corrigan, so now they are two separate beings. But in doing so, the Spectre is now owned by Neron and is going to become Neron's bodyguard in the future. So he won't be able to help the heroes in fighting Neron at all. He can refuse to help Neron, but he won't be able to fight with the heroes. He'll just be unable to do anything. So they recruit Jim Corrigan, and then they go and find this guy named Jared Stevens, who is Fate. He is the current Dr. Fate, except unlike Dr. Fate, he doesn't wear the helmet of Naboo. He's just a regular guy with like the Fate, like with the Anubis symbol around his eye, and he makes weapons out of the helmet of Naboo. Like he gets his own weapons that transform out of the helmet of Naboo, kind of like Green Lantern. And he punches demons, and basically it's as 90s as you can get with Dr. Fate. And you can tell that the writers don't like this new version of Dr. Fate, because all the other characters keep talking about how this Fate sucks and no one likes him, and that he doesn't even know anything about occult stuff and magic and stuff like that. And Deadman joins them too. He doesn't do anything, but he's there because he has to be, because he's an occult character. It's kind of disappointing that he doesn't do anything. He possesses the body of a weird werewolf demon when they enter Neron's not hell, like hell but it's not hell. And then he doesn't do anything at all. And it's the same with Jim Corrigan. He enters the other dimension with them, and then he doesn't do anything. And he doesn't even show up in any other panels afterward. Because when they enter this other dimension, because they go to this club owned by this guy whose name is Tanarak, and he's like a occult dude or something. I don't know. They don't really explain him. But he knows who Phantom Stranger and stuff is. So they enter this other dimension through a portal that they create in Tanarak's club. And when they enter the other dimension, they meet some people working for Neron who they have to fight. Etrigan the Demon, who has been shown to be a villain lately. Another character called Blaze. And then there's this other guy named Thorn. He's the one who steals Molly's soul, and so Alan goes after him. And then there's this other guy whose name I don't even think they mention. And he's like this gray-skinned demon-looking dude. Yeah, so Fate fights Etrigan the Demon and beats him. The Phantom Stranger fights Blaze and beats him. Spectre learns of his fate and that he's going to become Neron's bodyguard, and he spends the whole comic screaming that he doesn't want to do that. And then Alan Scott faces Thorn and fights Thorn and frees Molly from him. And then Neron shows up and is like, you beat all of my men. But, like, I'm gonna win anyway because you can't beat me because I'm the devil and I'm the main antagonist of this event. So there's no way you can beat me. And so Alan tells the other characters to take Molly to safety, like, take her soul to safety, get her away from Neron, and that he'll face Neron head on, like, 1-to-1. And so he musters all of his power, and he flies towards Neron with all of his green energy, and it's just like, ah! And then we cut to Alan Scott has lost to Neron, and is now living in a hell-like situation where he is really small. Either he's really small and he's on a regular-sized Neron's, like... Because Neron wears, like, this giant, like, collar thing around his neck. So either Alan Scott is regular size, is, like, really small, and Neron is regular size, and Alan Scott is attached to Neron's collar, and is just, like, tied there, screaming. Or Alan Scott is regular sized, and Neron is ginormous, and he's tied to Neron's collar. It's really weird. It just ends with, like, he's in this torturous situation where he's just tied to Neron's chest, and Neron is laughing, and Alan is just like, ah! And he's like, I never dreamt that I would end up in such a hellish situation. And it ends there. That's where it ends. It ends with Alan Scott. It's such a weird ending, where he's just tied to Neron's chest. And it says, to be concluded in Underworld issue 3. Except we're not reading Underworld issue 3 yet. If the next thing we're going to be reading is Batman Devil's Asylum, which is another one shot written by Alan Grant, who is a prominent Batman writer. He's written Batman for years, so I'm expecting this to actually be good because Alan Grant is a good Batman writer. So I guess we'll find out. So, Batman Devil's Asylum, written by Alan Grant with art, also written by Brian Stelfreeze, so both of them wrote it together, with art by Rick Burchett and Linda Medley. So yeah, Devil's Asylum is the best one-shot so far. And not just because the other two were varying degrees of mediocre, but no, this one is actually really good. I really enjoyed this one. If I was going to recommend reading a one-shot while reading Underworld Unleashed, I would definitely recommend this one. Because if you like seeing Arkham Asylum and what it's like for the criminals in there and stuff, and you like to see them just doing regular things while they're in the asylum, then you definitely enjoy this. It's narrated by Jeremiah Arkham, who is the leader, or the owner of Arkham Asylum. I think he's the great-grandson. He's either the great-grandson, maybe he was the grandson, now he's the great-grandson, because, as comics get older, you have to start pushing ancestry along. He's like the great-great-grandson of Amadeus Arkham, the the creator of Arkham Asylum. He talks about this one inmate at Arkham called the Poisoner, or his real name is Crippen. And they talk about how he's been talking to what he calls the devil, and we see some footage of him making a deal with the devil that in exchange for his soul he will be the ruler of the world, a dictator. We get to see some of the inmates, and so Jeremiah's I'll talk to him later. So we get to see some of the inmates just doing regular things, like the Riddler and this criminal called Julius Caesar, who is
he like models himself after Julius Caesar, are playing like poker, and they get into a fight. It's kind of funny seeing Riddler actually get into a fight with someone. I always usually saw him as one of those guys that was like afraid to actually fight. Like he'd never been in a fight in his life, and he'd rather use his mind. But no, apparently Riddler isn't against, throwing fists, throwing hands. So a fight breaks out between two criminals, like two of the inmates, after one of them wins a ping pong match. The other one tries to eat him because he's a cannibal, but he gets taken away by the security guards. And as that scuffle is going down, there's this other guy whose name is Bradbury, and he's been betting that he can do what Benjamin Franklin can do, which is summon lightning. And one of the other guys doesn't believe him, and Two-Face is like, well, let's flip a coin and see, like, if it lands on heads, then that means Bradbury can do it, and if it lands on tails, that means he can't. And so it lands on heads, and as the scuffle is going around with these other two inmates, Bradbury smashes through the upper window, and he climbs up the building, because he's an inmate that believes that Benjamin Franklin has, like, the spirit of Benjamin Franklin guides him and stuff, and so he climbs up to the, like, weather rod that is on top of the building. He grabs onto it, and a bunch of lightning strikes him, killing him, and shutting off all power in the asylum. And for the rest of the comic, it's kind of haunting. Bradbury's, like, fried corpse is just, like, smiling throughout the rest of the comic. You'll see, like, shots of it just smiling. It's really, really eerie. So now that the lights have been shut off, they're all wondering, like, they're all afraid that the inmates can do whatever they want now. Like, they're afraid of what they're going to try and do now that there's no power. Crippen wants to talk to Jeremiah, and he tells Jeremiah about how the devil Neron came to him and offered him the deal for his soul of, taking over the world. And then Crippen's like, and the one thing I have to do in order to become the dictator of the world is this. And he starts, like, he attacks Jeremiah, and then a massive riot breaks out in the middle of the asylum. Two-Face goes to flip his coin, and he's like, who cares? I know what side it's going to land on. And so he starts taking part in the fight. There's this one guy called Amygdala who is killing everyone. Inmates, doctors, it doesn't matter. Like, he's killing everyone. And so they have to take him down first. Eventually, the security guards manage to take over the situation, and they knock Crichton out and put everyone back in their cells. And this is where Jeremiah's darker side comes out, when you realize that he shouldn't be in control of Arkham Asylum, because after that whole deal, he's considering torturing the inmates instead of helping them in a more humane way. So he starts talking about, like, locking Two-Face in a room with nothing but odd numbers, because he's so fixated on the number 2 that it would send him tipping over the edge. Using laser surgery on Zazaz to get rid of all of the scars all over his body, because that would put him in a catatonic state. Pulling apart the Riddler's brain to find the one part of his brain that makes him spout those annoying riddles. Stuff like that. Meanwhile, Crichton was knocked out, but he wakes up as he hears 2 of the security guards talking about Bradbury. And so he sneaks up behind them and he kills them both. And then he sneaks off into the store, like, into the supply closet, where he takes a bunch of, like, drugs and stuff. Because he's the poisoner, he knows how to make any poison with pretty much anything. He can make poisons out of his own secretions if he wanted to. And he mixes it into the coffee to poison the coffee supply. And the chocolate supply too. And so everyone starts, like, drinking the coffee and drinking hot chocolate, and they start feeling like stomach aches and stuff, and they all pass out, and Crichton is like, don't worry, it won't hurt for long. And then he goes to see Jeremiah, and he hands him a coffee, and that's when it's revealed that it's actually Crippen in disguise delivering the coffee, and Jeremiah is like, poison. And that's when Crippen reveals his plan, which is that, like, he's poisoned everyone in Arkham Asylum, and it's to force Batman to come to Arkham Asylum because he has a plan for Batman that will help him succeed as, like, becoming a dictator. So Batman comes to Arkham Asylum in order to save everyone. And when he arrives, Crippen is like, all you need to do in order to get the antidote to save all these people is to kill one of them. Doesn't matter who you kill, you just gotta kill someone. And Batman is like, no. And Crippen is like, you're not gonna kill one person to save 200 people? And Batman's like, no, I'm not gonna kill one person to save 200 people. I'm not gonna let the murders that you have done into my conscience. Like, it's not gonna work that way. And he's like, no, you can't let them die. You have to save them. You're the Batman. And so Batman uses his like grappling hook to zip up to where Crippen is and kick him in the face. And then he's like, the antidote. It's like, I'll never tell you where it is. And then so Batman grabs Crippen's poison, because Crippen was holding it in his hand. Because Crippen was holding the poison, and when Batman came up and kicked him in the face, the poison, he like let it go, and the poison was like kind of in the air. And so Batman grabbed it, and then he forces Crippen to drink the poison. And then Crippen's like, hey, I'll just die. Like, I don't care, I'll die. You know, and Batman's like, what, do you think that, like, Neron is going to, like, you're going to be a dictator in hell? Did Neron say that he was going to treat your soul, like, well? He's probably going to torture your soul down there. You're going to be in nothing but misery. And then Crippen's like, well, you can be in misery with me. He's like, you can suffer with me. And Batman's just like, I've always suffered. And that's when Crippen is like, alright, damn you, I'll take you to the antidote. And he takes Batman to the antidote. And he drinks some of the antidote himself, and then he gives it to Batman, and Batman goes off and he cures everyone in the asylum. And then after that, Batman heads off, and Jeremiah finds Crippen in the local storage closet, where Crippen's like, please don't let him find me, I failed him, he'll take my soul. And Jeremiah's like, there, Mr. Crippen, you're with friends now, we'll look after you. And because it's Jeremiah, I think the hint there is that, like, Crippen's about to get tortured by Jeremiah, because Jeremiah is not a friend, as we've learnt over the last few pages. He's been fantasizing about torturing the inmates at Arkham, and this is kind of this is the beginning of his real downfall into becoming a villain. Because before this, Jeremiah was kind of like a grey character where we never really know if he's good or not, but now it's like, no, this is his downfall to becoming a villain. Eventually he would become the second Black Mask, where he would believe that he is Black Mask, and he would end up an inmate in his own asylum. Just like Amadeus. Amadeus ended up as an inmate in Arkham Asylum as well. So it's kind of like a family trait to run the asylum and then end up an inmate. But yeah, that's the end of the one shot. Really good. I definitely recommend checking it out. Obviously, I explained the overall story of it, but there are some deeper things in there that that I left out, you know, so that you can go and read it if you want to get, like, every single, like, interaction and stuff between, like, Two-Face and some of the other villains. Sadly, Two-Face and Riddler are the only Batman villains that have a role in, like, have, like, speech lines and stuff. Like, Clayface 3 is mentioned. Poison Ivy, you see her for, like, one shot. No Joker. But Joker's in hell at the moment, so that makes sense. I guess that's why he's not in this. Yeah, anyway, the next one-shot we're going to be talking about, the final one-shot before Underworld Unleashed Issue 3, is Patterns of Fear, the ultimate temptation of Oracle. So this seems to be a one-shot all about Oracle contemplating making a deal to get the use of her legs back again. So this one I'm excited for. I really hope it's good. It's written by Roger Stern, who is a pretty... Like, I remember Roger Stern being a pretty good writer. So this is probably going to be good. Oh, and Andy Lanning as well. Then this has to be good. Andy Lanning is good. So before we get into Patterns of Fear, I just wanted to remind everyone listening that if you want to hear more of these episodes and stuff, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, and the YouTube channel is Marvel and DC Retrospective. And if you're watching the YouTube video, then just, click straight to the channel and subscribe. Patterns of Fear, written by Roger Stern, with art by Anthony Williams and Andy Lanning. Patterns of Fear is good. This is a good one. This might actually be... I don't know, I really liked Devil's Asylum, but I really like this one too. I don't know which one's my favorite. Maybe Devil's Asylum, because this one's good, but it's also a bit of like a catch up on the upgrades that all of the villains have gotten through Underworld Unleashed, but they do it in an interesting way and not a boring way. So basically, Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon, because she's not Batgirl anymore, she got shot through the spine by a Joker, ended up in a wheelchair, and now she's Oracle. And she kind of serves as like the database for the entire DC universe, and not just Batman. Like, everyone hires her to help them. So she gets visited by Neron. She doesn't know it's Neron, but he shows up in a white suit. He looks real great. I really like the art in this. And he shows up, and as he's talking to her, because he knows who she is, he knows that she's Oracle, he knows her real name is Barbara Gordon, and he knows that she has a database with pretty much everything on it, because she's just one of those people that keeps tabs on everything. So he knows that she would have information on everything in relation to not only his inner circle of villains, but all of the villains in the DC universe, especially with what's going on at the moment. As he's talking, she tries to grab a couple of like fighting sticks, and he just teleports them away from her and burns them in his hands. He's like, I'm not going to allow you to do that. I know everything. So he first gets Oracle to show her through her first database, which includes a bunch of... It's really cool. I highly recommend reading this issue just to see this stuff, because I'm not going to be able to go through it all because there's a lot of text and it would take me forever. But basically, there are files recreated in this issue, real like typed out files of all the villains. So you got like Killer Moth, Dr. Phosphorus, Spellbinder. Later on, there's like some about like Lex Luthor and Dr. Polaris and the Joker, and the Joker doesn't have very much information. And the really cool thing is that in the corner of each page, or on each page, there is a file photo, and the file photo is obviously drawn by an artist, and in the issue at the bottom of the corner it will be like Police Composite by Howard Porter, and Howard Porter is an artist. File photo by Phil Jimenez. So it's acting as if like in universe the real Phil Jimenez sent in this, like made this photo and sent it in and stuff. So like I think that's really cool. I think it's really cool when writers incorporate the artist's fictional selves into the comic in reference to their real art. I think it's really cool. There's this group that they mentioned called the Killer Elite, and it's a group of assassins that have all joined together, and one of them's Deadshot. And I'm like, Deadshot would never team up with Merlin. Like, in what universe is Deadshot teaming up with Merlin or Chiller or Bolt or Deadline? Like, he'd just be like, fuck those guys, and he'd kill them all. Like, just, I thought that was funny. I was like, there's no way he doesn't end up, like, killing all of them. Because that's just what Deadshot does. He doesn't work with other assassins. So, yeah, after going through all of those files, Oracle tries to use a cross against Neron, and it just doesn't work on him. He's just like, what do you think I am? I'm not Satan. I'm a devil, but I'm not that devil. You know, the cross doesn't work on me. And he just snatches it off of her, and then she sees her dad on the cross, and she kind of freaks out, and then he disappears, and she's like, whoa, what just happened? I just saw my dad on the cross. Like, what the hell is going on? And so as Neron is continuing to talk and, like, just yap, because he's a real yapper, Oracle, like, Barbara grabs a nearby file and tries to hide it away from him, and he just poofs it into his hand and starts looking through it, and we get, you know, more villain databases for, like, Grodd, Killer Frost. The most interesting one ending on Cersei, where Oracle was investigating Cersei to try and prove whether or not Cersei is the real god or not. And she even went as far as to investigate Donna Milton's living quarters, because Donna Milton is the civilian identity of Cersei, and there was no evidence that she isn't or is the god Cersei, so they just don't know. Some of these are actually written by other characters in the DC universe. Like, one of them is written by Linda Park as, like, an email sent to Oracle, and then another one is written by Julia Capitelis, which is another character from DC. So it's really cool that, like, we have these other characters communicating with Oracle and sending her, like, these files on these villains and stuff and helping her. So Oracle reveals that she knows who Neron is, because she calls him Neron, and he's like, oh, so you know who I am? Well, I don't need to wear the suit anymore. I can wear my actual costume. And Neron's like, and if you know who I am, then you know everything about my inner circle, right? So give me the file that has my inner circle on it. And so she hands him the file that has all the details about Lex Luthor and Abracadabra, Dr. Polaris, and the Joker. And yeah, it's when they mention the Joker that Neron is like, you don't know anything about the Joker. You don't have much information about the Joker. Why don't you have much information about the Joker? Oh, I have a feeling I know why. It's because you don't want to think about him, because you don't want to think about what he's done to you in recent years. You know, remember when he shot you through the spine and he forced you, like, you ended up in this wheelchair, and he starts creating all, like, these kind of hallucinations around, or, like, it's not even a hallucination, like, this is actually happening. He starts, like, morphing the world around Oracle so that she sees her, like, dad in, like, being tortured by the Joker, and, like, her being shot, and so she starts freaking out, and she tries to roll away in her wheelchair, and then these arms grow out of her wheelchair and grab her, and Neron's like, you're not getting away, I've got more files to look at. And in the next file, we unfortunately get to see the redesign of Psycho Pirate, which sucks. I hate it. And the redesign of Major Disaster, which also sucks. Trickster 1 ain't bad. I kind of like the Trickster redesign. And then these two Batgirls appear out of the ground and also hold Oracle up in the air, and they're supposed to symbolize Oracle, like, Oracle's crutch being Batgirl. Like, that's what Neron is trying to symbolize. He's like, yeah, your crutch is Batgirl. They're the thing. Batgirl is the thing that is holding you up and is the only thing that really made you relevant. And so I can help make you relevant again by giving you your ability to walk again, and you could be Batgirl again. But not only will you be Batgirl, I'll throw in another thing for the deal. I'll give you the powers of Superman. I'll make you super strong. I'll make you super indestructible. You can catch bullets in your mouth. Imagine what the Joker would think about that. And Barbara's just like, well, what do you want? If I say yes, what do you want in return? And he's like, the only thing I want in return, like, I'm not even going to ask for your soul. I just want you to become my personal librarian. I just want you to be my database for whenever I need it. And Oracle is like, absolutely not. Never gonna do that. Sorry, no deal. No matter, like, even if you say you're not gonna take my soul, anyone who works for you will eventually lose their soul. And like, for Neron, that's it. Like, once somebody says no to his deal, he can't do anything, so he has no choice but to say, alright, Barbara, you said no. I guess I'm gonna leave. Barbara's like, well, you can leave, but I'm gonna tell everyone about what happened here today, and that I've met you. And Neron's like, yeah, go ahead. Doesn't matter. Even if you tell people, even if they do believe you, even if there are heroes out there that believe you, it's gonna be too late by the time they decide to try and stop me anyway. So, see ya. And he leaves. And Barbara, is left just thinking about, like, what Neron's plans are, and that there's just so many questions and not near enough time to find the answers. And she's like, I've won a small personal battle, but how does the world survive a war with the devil? And that's it. That's the end of the one shot. It's a really I really liked it. I really liked that one. I think I just like Barbara Gordon, and I like Oracle. So having an entire issue just be about Barbara struggling with the decision of, taking a deal from Neron, while organically including the, like, explaining what happened to every villain in Underworld Unleashed. Not every villain, but most of the villains in Underworld Unleashed, how their powers evolved and stuff. Explaining all that through Oracle was a good way to do it. Definitely recommend reading that one, especially if you want to see all the, like, police files and stuff for all the villains, because it's really interesting. But yeah, now that that's over, we're up to the final issue of Underworld Unleashed. Underworld Unleashed, issue 3. So yeah, without further ado, let's finish this event. So Underworld Unleashed, issue 3. The world is currently under chaos because Neron has unleashed his full power, and so a group of the heroes have entered his domain in order to try and find Superman, because they believe that he has kidnapped Superman in order to steal Superman's soul, because it would be the most powerful soul in the universe, because of how pure it is. The group of heroes that go to this dimension are Firestorm, the Ray, Captain Atom, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Flash, Warrior, which is the name that Guy Gardner goes by at the moment, Maxima, Green Lantern, Blue Devil, and Martian Manhunter. So they all go into this other world, and it's funny, the Ray is still, like, guilty over taking the deal, so he's really got to prove himself, and so he and Captain Atom stay behind to fight off some of these demon forces so that the other heroes can get further into this hell dimension, where they come across the circles of hell, I'm gonna call them. They're like these circles that they've got to break through in order to get to the middle, where Neron is most likely going to be. They're like the layers of hell, but as like a giant whirlpool. So they start breaking through these different layers. Meanwhile, Neron is sitting on his throne with Alan Scott on his chest from the end of that other one shot. And then Satanus shows up, who is the brother of the character Blaze, who was also in the tie-in with Alan Scott, if you remember that one, the one-shot. She is the sister of Blaze. And Satanus basically is like, hey, Neron, you can have my sister's soul so that I can have my soul back. And so Blaze is in a cage and is like, you imbecile, like, you gave up your own sister for this guy? And Satanus is just like, quit yapping, quit whining, Blaze. You know, there's one word that I could say that not even Neron can stand. And just as he's about to say the word, Neron just goes and destroys Satanus and just kills him. And Blaze is just like, ah, crap. But she doesn't care. She doesn't care that her brother's dead. But she's also not... She also doesn't care about Neron either, and she's not like... It's not like she's alleged to Neron, you know. She'll betray him at the drop of a hat. So the heroes continue fighting through hell, including, like, the souls of some of their enemies, like Cheetah and other characters, and some of the souls of their former allies as well, who have been twisted by hell. And then there are heroes on the outside who are also fighting demonic forces, like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, and everyone's favorite character, Damage, and the magic characters. They're all fighting demons as well. It doesn't really go any deeper than that. It's just like, oh, they're all fighting stuff throughout the world. The one that it does go a little bit deeper on, though, is we get to see Batman and Robin, Tim Drake, fighting Gorilla Grodd, Metallo, and what was his name? Blockbuster. Yeah, so they're fighting them with Black Canary, and then Black Canary gets attacked by Gorilla Grodd's force of mind, and then Huntress shows up and helps them fight them, and they beat them, and they get to safety. So that happens. So we get a little bit of a cool little fight scene between them. Yeah, so they continue breaking through the layers of hell, and they get to a layer where they all start hearing voices that start really messing with their minds, and that's when Martian Manhunter talks about how, I guess he already knew who Neron was. This is kind of Mark Waid retconning the fact that, like, even back on Mars, Martian Manhunter knew who Neron was. Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, starts hearing voices from his parents, and he's like, no, this isn't real, it's not real. And so he's like, I gotta get through the light, and he smashes through the light, and they end up in the next layer of hell, which is essentially, it's the last layer of hell. It's where Neron is, and the heroes start acting a little bit weird. Like, Flash is just like, I give up, Neron, like, there's no way, I can't fight hell. And Guy's just like, yeah, like, Earth, like, who needs to save Earth? It's probably a crumbling piece of crap anyway. And Captain Marvel's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we gotta save Earth. We can't just turn our backs on it. And Neron shows up and he's like, here I am. And Blue Devil's just like, you killed my wife, even though I made a deal. And you took my soul, you took everything, so now I'm gonna kill you. And he starts attacking Neron. He's like, I can't live like this. And then Neron's like, agreed. And then he just goes, pow! And then Blue Devil just dies. He just gets blasted by Neron. And so all the other heroes are just like, ah! And they all start attacking Neron like, how dare you kill him? And Neron's just like, it's time for you to all follow his lead. And Captain Marvel's just like, tell us what you did with Superman. We're not leaving without him. And Trickster is just like, listen to him. It's not Superman he's after, Marvel. It never was. It was you. And so the heroes all turn on Captain Marvel, because it turns out that Captain Marvel is the one who Neron has been after this whole time. It was his soul, and it explains why Superman isn't in this event at all. But, like, where is he? I guess you'd have to read Superman to find out about that. So the other heroes start attacking Captain Marvel because their minds have been twisted by hell, and Neron tries to convince Captain Marvel to fight back and end their suffering because it's the only way to do that. Because they obviously don't want to kill him, and deep down they are crying for help. They're crying for Captain Marvel to stop them because they don't want to kill their friend, but also they're never going to become who they were before. At least that's what Neron is saying. And so Captain Marvel has no choice but to kill them in order to save them. And Captain Marvel just refuses. He refuses to do so. And Blaze, because she doesn't like Neron and because she believes it'll give her brother a bit of a laugh in the afterlife, decides to give Captain Marvel back some of his power by healing him, because the reason she's there in order to sap Captain Marvel's power. This is where we reveal that Captain Marvel is weaker at the moment because he had his powers drained by Blaze. It sounds like a last minute thing, and that's because it is. They don't really mention it before this, but at this point she's like, no, I was here because I was sapping his energy away, and now I'm going to give it back to him, so now he's strong enough to fight against everyone and fight Neron. So Blue Devil comes back, and he's just like, we're not finished! You didn't think you could kill me in a place like this? So it turns out Blue Devil is actually alive, and so he starts beating up Neron, and then the Trickster convinces Captain Marvel that, earlier on, Satanus was going to say a word that Neron didn't want to hear, and Captain Marvel assumes that it's Shazam, and so he says the word Shazam, creates a giant spark of lightning that comes down, and it zaps Neron, and turning Captain Marvel back into Billy Batson. And because he got, snapped by lightning, it gives the other heroes an opportunity to all wail on Neron. So they all start attacking him. And Warrior blasts Neron's chest, freeing Alan Scott from his chest. And so Alan Scott returns to normal size and then starts beating the crap out of Neron with his abilities. They all start fighting him. They all start fighting Neron. And Trickster decides to take Captain Marvel away a little bit because they need to come up with a plan. Because Trickster has a plan in order to defeat Neron. So while the heroes are all beating up Neron, Neron turns the tides and just knocks them all out because he's supposed to be the devil. So he's just like, "Argh!" and just knocks them all out with his powers. And then Captain Marvel shows up and is like, hello, Neron, I've come to offer you a deal. Neron's like, no, and Captain Marvel's like, yes, I know what you want, and it's yours, my soul, free and clear. And Neron's just like, for? He's like, the release of my friends, the release of Earth, and nothing else. And the Trickster's just like, go on, how many times have you said it yourself? You can't resist a deal. And so Neron takes Captain Marvel's soul, but he can't touch it because it's still pure. And Trickster's just like, ha ha, tricked ya. See, Captain Marvel, most of the deals that you've taken with people are selfish deals, so their soul is tainted when you get it, and so you're allowed to absorb it. But because the deal you made with Captain Marvel was selfless, and wasn't selfish at all, his soul is still pure, so you can't even absorb it. Haha, you lose, we win, you can't even have his soul. And because Neron, this just really pisses Neron off. He's just like, Trickster! And I guess it was enough to, keep him, I don't know. It's really confusing to say, how he lost. I guess he just needed soul energy to sustain himself, and because he didn't get the soul energy that he needed, he lost control, and he just destroyed, he just goes out of control and blasts his dimension apart. And all of the heroes get blasted out of the other dimension. back into reality, like back into the real world, or back into, the main world. And Blue Devil comes back, and they're all like, well, we don't know where Blue Devil is. Like, he's somewhere, but hopefully he's got his soul back. Neron is defeated. Let's all go home. Like, it's very anticlimactic. It's kind of just like, oh, Neron just kind of like throws a temper tantrum, and then they all get out. And then the Trickster heads back to Central City and is like, I did a good thing, and that felt good. So, like, even though doing crimes will be tempting, I'm thinking I kind of want to get into heaven. So having a few friends in heaven isn't a bad idea, because I don't want to go back to hell. And it actually wouldn't be long after this that I think Jeff Johns would just go completely against this, and like Trickster would just be a villain in his Flash run. So I guess fuck that. screw Underworld Unleashed. It's development of the Trickster. And then meanwhile, Major Disaster returns and realizes that he still has powers, so he thinks that he's tricked Neron and retained his abilities while also retaining his soul. And he looks in his reflection and he sees the number 666 on his forehead, and it says, as far as any Faustian debts go, well, they are null and void, at least until the day Neron rises again. And it ends with Major Disaster being like, ah! Like screaming, and then like Neron is in the sky watching over him, so it's kind of like, he's not gone, he's gonna come back. Justice League, I think it's in the Justice League. I think Justice League is what expands more on this whole Major Disaster plotline, and maybe the Flash will do that. I think there is an arc coming up eventually that Neron is featured in, so maybe that's where we'll continue this setup for Major Disaster. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of Underworld Unleashed. The main event was underwhelming, but also not, like, because I kind of went into this expecting that it was going to be like mediocre, and it was. Not that it doesn't have its moments. The best moment being Blue Devil realizing that he's been tricked by Neron in issue 2. Like, that was the best scene in this. It almost made this whole thing worth reading. The one-shots, Devil's Asylum and Patterns of Fear, were better than the main event. Both of those. And issue 3 definitely felt like I gotta wrap up... It felt like Mark Waid was like, I gotta wrap up this story because I only had 3 issues to tell it. So let's just get it over with and finish it. Because, like, the final battle with Neron isn't short, but like the way he gets defeated, it still feels like it was rushed. Because he kind of just, like I said, he just gets upset and then like he just blows up, and then that's it. They won. Like he never actually gets beaten. They don't actually beat him. They trick him, and I guess that counts. I don't know, but yeah, that's it. That's Underworld Unleashed. I hope you enjoyed it. I would recommend checking it out because it's better than, the early 90s stuff. I don't know overall if I would have enjoyed this more than Zero Hour or not. I think I enjoyed this more than 0 Hour because at least this didn't have Monarch or Extant in it. So maybe it is better than that. Definitely check out those Devil's Asylum and Patterns of Fear one-shots though. But yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, then feel free to follow the podcast, and I hope to see you next week, because next week we're going to be doing some more Flash. Specifically, we are going to be doing the Flash crossover event, Dead Heat, which is a crossover between the Flash and Impulse, Bart Allen, his own series. So we're going to be doing that. It's a 6-part crossover. That's going to be next week's episode. And then after that, I think we're just going to be doing more Flash. So yeah, hope to see you next week. Have a good one.